And if we head to the front of the Oz, just staying with the fire theme just for a few more seconds, the headline, of course, is Get Lean, PM Wheels the Axe, and we'll get to that. But you can see a photo there of golfers. The headline is Choke. World's golfers smoked out at Australian Open, and as I said, on my way to the airport today, I went past the Australian where the Australian Open is being held, and I've got to say, visibility was incredibly poor. All right, let's get to the front of the Australian now. Dan Petrie, the Prime Minister did indicate right from the get-go when he was elected as Prime Minister that he was going to have a red-hot look at the bureaucracy, and here he is in action, true to his word. He is having a red-hot look. Get lean, PM wills the axe. Morrison shakes up bureaucracy. 5 mandarins are gone and 4 super departments have been created. He's reduced the bureaucracy, the number of departments, from 16 to 12, and clearly he means business, Dan.
No, he has to mean business, because if there's one thing which has been one of the great growth industries, be it at local, state, federal, has been the growth in public expenditure, particularly in the administration of essential services for all levels of government. Now, it is, you know, whether people like it or not, basically living by your means is a necessary thing we all have to do, particularly governments. So this is actually a good move, really, by Scott Morrison. And if anything, it's the taxpayer dollar here we're talking about. And if there's one, you know, constant area of churn or, you know, frustration for many voters out there, is the perception that there is bureaucratic fat cats. So it's pleasing to see anyway that the sentiment about making sure that the public service is lean and efficient is certainly a positive headline, but again, service delivery is key here.
Isn't it interesting, Michael Owen, that in places like Victoria and Queensland that are run by Labor governments, we've got this big government philosophy where they put on extra public servants, they put on extra departments. You then look at what the LNP does, and it sort of brings them back. And in Campbell Newman's case, he slashed too many because he finished up getting booted out for being so aggressive. But look, I think they should take it even further. I'd take a root and branch approach to the whole departmental, Commonwealth departmental situation. I mean, I'd be looking at decentralising some of those bigger departments, put agriculture in Bathurst, put defence in Townsville, you know, put mining in Mount Isa. Could you imagine the stimulus to local economies that would occur if you put some of those big departments in some of those regional areas that are struggling? I think it would be a big boon for their local economies.
Yeah, and these are ideas that are raised all the time, as you say, in Labor states, particularly where you know, the public sector is huge, balloons out, and I think the problem is, of course, the public sector unions arc up and create all sorts of political problems for the government of the day. And look, Scott Morrison, yeah, look, true to his word, he said before the election that he'd be looking at reforms to the public service. And of course, you know, the last great reform of the public service was Bob Hawke many years ago. So, and he was a Labor, obviously a Labor Prime Minister. So I think that Scott Morrison has made some changes, but he's only got limited powers, really. He can get rid of the department heads, but those numbers and all the divisions and the agencies, they're the ones that you need to try and you know, scale back a bit, and they're the ones that prove very difficult to get rid of. You see, in a lot of bureaucracies, workers just shuffle from department to department, or often put in kind of a waiting lounge because they can't actually be sacked. And so I worry, I suppose, that these super departments, while they sound wonderful, they can also sometimes end up being unwieldy beasts and you know, perhaps not as efficient as you start off hoping them to be. So the proof will be in the pudding, I suppose, whether or not we do see better services, which is what Scott Morrison says this is all about. Yeah, I have doubts about that.